To the deep dive. We've got some really fascinating sources in front of us today. Mind-bending stuff, really.
Absolutely. Trying to map out, well, the very structure of reality and divinity, it's ambitious.
It definitely asks you to stretch your thinking, doesn't it? Way beyond the everyday.
Mm-hmm. And these sources, they dive straight into something they call the Trinity of Trinities, a core concept, but wow, is it complex?
Yeah. And they're pretty upfront about that, aren't they?
Yeah.
The material basically says, look, this isn't easy for finite minds like ours.
Right. It's pushing the limits, metaphysics, infinite realities, the absolute nature of God. It's heavy stuff.
Kind of feels like trying to, I don't know, see the whole universe just standing in your backyard.
Yeah.
Our perspective is just inherently limited by space, by time.
Exactly. But, that's what we're here to try and do today, right?
Right. Using these sources, we're going to attempt to unpack this thing, this Trinity of Trinities, sort of layer by layer.
Yeah, extract the core ideas. Try and figure out what this framework is actually suggesting about divinity, the cosmos, our place in it all.
It's definitely a challenge. The sources even say celestial beings find parts of this unfathomable. So no pressure.
Yeah, right. But the potential payoff is pretty big, isn't it? A framework for seeing how maybe everything fits together, how it's all integrated.
Okay, so where do we even start with something called the Trinity of Trinities? What is it, fundamentally?
Well, the sources give this definition. It's dense at first. It says it's the actual summation of the entirety of experiential infinity, manifested in a theoretical infinity of eternity realization.
Okay, whoa, let's break that down. Summation of the entirety of experiential infinity. That sounds like literally everything that could ever possibly be experienced, ever.
That's the gist, yeah. It's presented as embodying the absolute total picture, all realities, all possibilities, everything that God knows or will know, past, present, future, the whole cosmic shebang.
Okay. And you mentioned two kinds of infinity in that definition, experiential and existential. What's the difference there?
Good question. So experiential infinity is described as everything that can be experienced. Think growth, learning, things unfolding over time and across space.
Like evolution development.
Exactly. It relates strongly to the supreme being, this idea of a deity who's constantly gaining experience through creation unfolding in time and space. It's infinity in motion, you could say.
And existential infinity.
That's the flip side. It's what already exists, eternally, timelessly. It's sort of the perfect, unchanging knowledge held by God the Father, the absolute source, what just is forever, regardless of time.
So one's dynamic unfolding experience, the other is the timeless reality that underpins it all.
Precisely. And here's the kicker. The sources say that within this Trinity of Trinities, these two infinities, the experienced and the eternally existing, they actually achieve perfect identity. They merge.
Perfect identity. How?
They merge into something the sources call pre-experience.
Pre-experience. Okay, my linear, time-bound brain is already hurting a bit. Yeah. How can something be before experience but also encompass all experience?
Huh? Yeah, it definitely messes with our usual way of thinking, doesn't it? But this unity, this identity of what is and what can be experienced, that's embodied in what the sources call the I am.
Ah, okay. The eternal self-existent being. Like in Exodus, I am that I am.
Exactly that concept. The I am is presented as the absolute foundation, the ultimate source from which everything else, all divinity, all reality, gets its being. It's the core.
And this is where the sources really emphasize, look, this is tough for us relative beings to grasp.
Right. Because our understanding is built on, well, limits, space, time, finite experience. So these ultimate realities, these finalities, they have to be presented to us in ways we can kind of relate to, relatively speaking, even if it's imperfect.
And they mentioned even celestial philosophers struggle.
Yeah, they do. So if you're finding this a bit mind-bending, you're in good company. It's meant to be challenging.
Okay, so this Trinity of Trinities isn't just one single thing. It's more like a huge, complex framework, a totality made of many parts.
Exactly. The sources talk about it being the final expression of, get this, 15 trinities and related triodities.
15? Wow.
Yeah. Now, they explain 7 of them, which gives us some insight. But 8 are basically described as being beyond our current ability to comprehend. Maybe even beyond celestial comprehension in some cases.
And this whole massive structure, all these different trinities, they all fundamentally depend on the I am, on God the Father.
Absolutely crucial point. Yeah. The Father is the ultimate source, the primordial reality. The Son and the Spirit, they emanate from him. They're distinct personalities, yes, but still part of him, contained within that ultimate I am source.
Got it. Okay, so let's dive into the structure they do explain. He said there are three main levels within this Trinity of Trinities framework. What's level one?
Level one is the one most might recognize. The Paradise Trinity, that's the core group, right? God the Father, the Eternal Son, and the Infinite Spirit.
The classic Trinity.
Exactly. Presented as distinct, co-equal deity personalities, but functioning in like absolute perfect unity, total synchronization.
And they have different functions even within that unity.
They describe a threefold function, all happening at once. There's an absolute function, sort of transcends everything specific, just ultimate divinity unified.
Okay.
Then there's a transcendental function, sometimes called the Trinity of Ultimacy, that operates beyond finite limits. And finally, a finite function, the Trinity of Supremacy. That's the one connecting directly to our realm of experience, evolution, the supreme being. Because, well, everything finite involves experience.
So three distinct persons, but always acting together,
Yeah.
like perfectly coordinated.
Always. The sources really stress that. Mutual knowledge, mutual consent. Always. They even use this analogy, like three workers on different levels passing a single part along, totally in sync, never dropping it, never disagreeing.
That's a helpful image. So level one is that core divine power.
The engine room, you might say. Okay, so moving out from that core.
Yeah.
Level two, the ultimate Trinity. What's that about?
All right, so this level groups together the supreme being, remember, the evolving experiential deity, along with the seven supreme creators who oversee local universes, and the architects of the master universe.
The architects.
Yeah.
The ones who plan the physical layout of everything.
That's how they're described, yeah. They plan the structure of the grand cosmos.
So what's the point of grouping these specific entities together at level two? What do they do as a unit?
Well, this level seems to represent the coordination of divine will as it translates into actual tangible creation and governance. Physical reality, experiential reality.
Oh, okay.
So the architects, for instance, are shown structuring the physical universes. They draw on like primordial matter from near paradise, following this grand blueprint. This whole level coordinates those huge creative and administrative functions.
So level two is where the divine plan from level one starts to take shape across the cosmos.
Exactly. It's manifesting that ultimate will in the concrete reality of the universes, including the one we're in. These actions are shown as perfectly coordinating with the Father's divinity, making his will real. Okay. And then there's a third level mentioned, the absolute Trinity.
Yes, this is presented as the highest level of unification we can sort of conceptually approach. It includes the Supreme Being, but in a future completed state, they call it the evolved Supreme Being.
Okay.
It also includes the eventuated ultimate being, that's a transcendental or absonite deity operating beyond our usual time and space. And then there's this really interesting figure, the consummator of universe destiny.
The consummator of universe destiny. Yeah, that name definitely stands out. You mentioned the sources say this being is almost only mentioned right here.
Yes, which really highlights how unique and ultimate its role is supposed to be within this whole framework. This consummator is apparently responsible for bringing everything to its final, ultimate completion, wrapping up the whole cosmic story, you might say.
Finishing the divine plan.
That's the idea. And this whole third level, the absolute Trinity, it connects out to outer space, the expanding cosmos.
Correct. It deals with realities that go beyond just finite existence, beyond even purely spiritual existence, as we might think of it. It reaches into those vast outer space levels where the Supreme Being is still evolving towards that final completion.
Wow. Okay, so within this immense structure, the sources also talk about cosmic dynamics, things like possibilities, probabilities, and inevitabilities.
Yeah, these are categories used to explain how potential unfolds. Possibilities are things that could happen. Probabilities are things that, seem likely based on current factors.
And inevitabilities.
Those are things that must happen, things embedded in the deep structure, the ultimate divine plan. So, how does free will fit with inevitability? That feels like a paradox, doesn't it?
It's a really key point they tackled directly. Free will is presented as absolutely real. Creatures like us have genuine choice. But the material also says certain ultimate cosmic outcomes are foreseen by God the Father as inevitable.
So our free will operates, but within a larger destiny that's kind of guaranteed, is that it?
That's the framework they lay out, yeah. Your choices are real, they have real consequences, but they happen within boundaries that ultimately ensure the grand cosmic purpose isn't, thrown completely off track.
They use Lucifer's rebellion as an example.
Right, exactly. A powerful, direct result of free will caused huge disruption locally, but according to these sources, the Father foresaw that specific possibility.
He knew it could happen.
And more than that, in his timeless perspective, He'd already adjudicated the outcome based on universal law before it even unfolded in time.
Wow. And the Ancients of Days, they play a role here.
They're described as agents of the Father, basically. They step in to actualize that inevitable outcome, uphold the universal law when things like the rebellion happen.
So a creature can choose eternal life by aligning with the plan,
Mm.
or choose self-destruction by rebelling, like Lucifer apparently did.
Right. But those choices, however free, still function within this larger framework of inevitabilities, ensuring the ultimate cosmic purpose prevails.
Okay. The sources also seem to describe a very structured path for growth, for spiritual evolution, distinct levels of existence.
Oh yes, progression is absolutely fundamental in this view. The material really emphasizes you move through these levels sequentially, no skipping steps allowed.
What are some of the levels they list?
Well, they mention finite, which is us, then midwayer, Urantia, that's the stage after physical death, then spiritual, then these more advanced levels like transcendental or abstinite, and finally, ultimate or paradise levels.
Transcendental and abstinite. Those sound different. You said they relate to outer space levels.
Yeah, they're beings described as transcending our normal limits of time and space. Transcendental might mean they can sort of pop into existence when needed, not necessarily born or evolved in the usual way.
Like they're beyond the normal path.
Kind of, and abstinite means they're definitely not finite, operating outside the space-time framework we understand.
Are there examples, like the primary midwayers?
The sources use them as an example, yes. They're described as having sort of transcended into existence in that realm between physical and Morontia, not having started as finite beings.
And they even use Jesus' own experience after the resurrection to make this point about not skipping levels.
It's a really striking example they use. Even Jesus, the Son of God, chose to appear and function for a time in the Morontia form after his resurrection.
He didn't have to.
The sources suggest he could have taken other forms, but he chose the Morontia form. Why? To experience that state, just like mortals who ascend have to.
Wow. That really underlines how important these stages are in the divine plan.
It really does. He didn't just bypass that crucial step in the journey before ascending and returning as Michael with full sovereignty. It shows how fundamental this structured path is supposed to be.
Okay, so let's try and pull this all together. We've got the core definition, the I am, the three levels, paradise, ultimate, absolute, these dynamics of possibility and inevitability, the structured existence levels.
Yeah.
How does the Trinity of Trinities, as a whole concept, integrate everything? What's the big picture here?
Well, the sources present it as the ultimate, all-encompassing framework. It literally holds within itself all beginnings, all the ways things exist right now, and all final destinies. And it's all centered in and comes from God the Father.
So what does this grouping actually include?
The material says it includes, well, everything. All ultimate causes, all the necessary intermediaries, all the final realities that are achieved, the ones who start things, the ones who make things happen, and the ones who bring things to completion.
Beginnings, existences, and destinies, all together.
Exactly. It unites the origin point, the ongoing reality, and the final destination.
And there's even like a cycle described, a grand cycle of reality.
Yes, they describe it as the completion of the divine circuit. Sort of. It moves from the Father-Son partnership, then Son-Spirit, then Spirit working with the Supreme Being,
Okay.
then the Supreme with the Ultimate Being, the Ultimate with the Absolute Trinity, and then finally, it cycles back from the Absolute to the Father Infinite, back to the I Am.
The cycle completes.
Right. It sounds like the sources are describing God the Father experiencing the fullness of all reality, the limitless potential of everything.
Even things not directly spiritual or personal.
That seems to be the idea. Even those realities are part of it. The Father is depicted as like self-realizing his own infinite potential through this endless cycle, from his absolute self-existence through revealing himself in all creation to finally realizing himself as all potentials become actual.
So it includes everything, past, present, future possibilities, even our experiences.
That's the claim. Everything that was, is, or ever could be. And crucially, yes, the sources imply it includes the subjective experience of every single being across all these vast levels of existence. It's all part of that divine self-realization.
Wow. Okay. Trying to wrap your head around that scale, that totality, it definitely gives you a sense of, well, appropriate humility, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. And the material keeps reminding us, we're finite beings trying to grasp infinite concepts. A lot of this has to remain a profound mystery for us.
But even with the mystery, even with the vastness, this framework, as presented in the sources, it does seem to offer a pretty powerful sense of maybe hope and purpose.
I think so. It suggests we're not just random specks. We're conscious participants, however small, in this incredibly grand, unfolding reality.
Our lives, our choices, the good, the bad, the growth,
Yeah.
it's all woven into this immense purposeful tapestry that's ultimately part of the I am experiencing itself.
That's the picture it paints. It gives individual experience a potentially cosmic significance.
So, thinking about this Trinity of Trinities, this ultimate framework supposedly encompassing all reality, all destiny. How does even trying to understand a piece of this potentially shape your own personal journey, your own spiritual path? What does your unique experience, your life right now, actually add to this immense mosaic of existence that's always unfolding and cycling back to the Father Infinite? That's definitely something to think about.